Today on the Buttface Drew Says podcast, I am going to be ticking off a whole bunch of content creators by explaining the issue with advertising-supported content, and then I'll be talking about other stuff too, so go ahead and stick around. I do not want to be recording right now, but we are going to do it anyway because it has to get done. We are only discussing one story this week, and it is that YouTube content creators are mad at YouTube. What else is new, right? That could be the headline, that could be the story every single week. YouTube does something, content creators get mad. YouTube does something, content creators get mad. But why are content creators mad this week? In November 2022, YouTube updated its advertiser-friendly content guidelines, and people are just now realizing it because YouTube has begun implementing it. And they are real mad. They are mainly focused on the inappropriate language section of the policy, which I will now read to you. All varieties of profanity are now treated equally, meaning they are not differentiated based on levels of severity. Also, we are not treating words such as hell or damn as profanity anymore. Content where profanity is used after the first 8 seconds may receive ad revenue. However, if profanity is used in the first 8 seconds of the video, then it will not monetize. And that last sentence in there is the main point of contention. If you swear in the first 8 seconds of your video, you cannot monetize your video, or if you have that in an existing video, it will be demonetized. And therein lies the issue. It is retroactively enforced, and that is why content creators are so mad about it. Because if you swore in the first 8 seconds of your video back in 2015, heck, in 2007, now that video will be demonetized. And I don't want to sound heartless because I understand why people are mad about this. I get it completely. This revolves around money. Whether YouTube ad revenue is 100%, 50% of your income, maybe it's just supplemental income, it's $50 a month. It doesn't matter. It's still revolving around money, and YouTube changed their policy and said, well, now you're going to be getting less of that. Who likes hearing that? You're going to be getting less money. Imagine going into your J-Dob. Yeah, imagine going into your J-Dob. That sounds like a person. That's a character name. Somebody can use that for their movie, J-Dob. And he has a terrible day job. But imagine going into your day job and having them say, you know what? We're going to cut your pay in half because we had a change in policy. So we don't think you should be earning as much. So I get it. I understand why content creators are ticked off. That sucks to hear. But I also think as content creators, we need to understand how the website actually functions, because I think there is a little bit of a disconnect, maybe a little bit of a misunderstanding of how the website works. Or maybe people are just angry because, hey, I'm earning less money. YouTube is the easiest target. I will yell at them. I don't know. But how does YouTube function? YouTube does not have a bucket of infinite money that they divvy up among all of the content creators that upload to their service. I know some people seem to think that's how it works. YouTube just has a money printer, and they say, oh, thanks for uploading. That was great. Here's money. Take some money. Here you go. That's not how it works. YouTube doesn't get grants for billions and billions of dollars from Google to give to content creators. That's not how it works. So how does YouTube get the money to give to content creators? They get a very minor portion from memberships, from YouTube Premium, from Super Chats and Super Thanks, but that is minuscule in terms of their income, or at least I'm assuming that is minuscule in terms of their revenue. The main way they get money is through advertising. So they have advertisers who come to them and say, here is a stack of money. Increase sales by showing these to people who will buy this product, buy this service. That's how they get their money. And there is a rule that I have been told many a time, many a time. He who has the money makes the rules. He or she who has the money makes the rules. So if YouTube does not have the money to start with, and advertisers are the one who come to the table and say, here's some money, who is really making the rules? It is the advertiser. Let's explore this a bit more. Can we imagine any world where YouTube sits down at an internal meeting and says, hey, I have a great idea for next quarter. Let us update our policy so that we show less ads and we earn less money. That is my brilliant idea. We are going to be rich. Can anybody imagine a world where YouTube would create a new policy and update their policy? Just completely internal, without any external factors, without any external input into that decision-making process? I don't see that happening. I imagine what actually happened, YouTube got a bunch of complaints. Not complaints from people watching YouTube, because nobody likes ads to begin with. Likely from the people who have the stacks of money. Advertisers. Advertisers came to them, at least I am speculating here. Advertisers showed up to YouTube and said, here's that stack of money. We hate that our ads have been shown on videos that have swearing directly after our ad ends. People confuse it as our advertisement having swearing in it. It negatively impacts our brand image. We don't like that. If this continues, that stack of money will be smaller next quarter. And when advertisers, those who have the money, tell YouTube to jump, YouTube says, oh yeah, how high? And once YouTube says how high, they update their policy, because we are all essentially employees of YouTube. We are subcontractors, independent contractors, whatever the terminology is, but we are essentially employed by YouTube because we have to abide by their guidelines. So when the advertisers say, we don't like this change, jump 5 feet high, YouTube jumps 5 feet high, then they update their policy saying, if you upload, you also have to jump 5 feet high. YouTube is not going to do this out of their own volition. They are not going to say, I would love to earn less money. Alphabet, we're going to earn less money. Are you happy? Tell the shareholders this is going to be great for the stock market. No, this is not something they want to do, because this is going to decrease their ad revenue. The only reason they would make this change is to ensure that money coming in does not decrease. So what is the actual outcome here? If they're trying to save that money coming in and make sure it doesn't decrease, that may mean videos that do not have swearing in the first 8 seconds see a higher CPM. They may earn more money. If you do swear in the first 8 seconds, you may not be getting any more money. At least on the videos that have that in them. I don't know how this will impact the entire channel. Maybe if you get so many strikes, your entire channel will be demonetized. I can't imagine that being the case, but you'll probably just alter how you edit your videos. There was a video of some guy swearing at 18 seconds into his video saying YouTube is stupid with much more colorful language. And I get that. I understand that, because you're YouTube's employee essentially, and they just said, we're going to give you less money. So I understand why you're pissed off. It makes perfect sense, especially if YouTube is your sole source of income. This is why diversification of income is so important, because these policies will change. And this is the exact issue with advertising supported content. Because the advertisers are the ones who dictate what is acceptable, what is unacceptable. Advertisers dictate what type of content will thrive on the platform, because the content that earns money is going to thrive. You will see more people jump on the bandwagon of the trends where people earn the most money. That is ultimately dictated by the advertisers. Unless YouTube makes a huge shift and 100% of the viewers, or let's say 50% of the viewers, start funding content creators through memberships and signing up for YouTube Premium and all of that, super thanks, super chats, unless that shift happens and people's entire perspective and relationship with online content shifts, this is the bed that the internet has made, and this is the bed the internet is going to lay in. Because the internet is almost entirely advertisement sponsored or advertisement supported content. Nobody wants to pay for content anymore. So this is where we are. There is another argument that I saw, and I understand this one a little bit more. It's not about the actual demonetization. It's about YouTube not being clear in its communication of policy changes. And I can understand that. YouTube does make all their policy changes available. But honestly, let's be honest with each other. How many of us go to YouTube's policy page? And even if we did, how many of us actually read through the entire policy? I think Roberto Blake is the only person in the history of the world who has read the entire YouTube policy. Everybody, and YouTube's lawyers, obviously. But other than them, nobody has. I haven't. I don't know most of the stuff that I agree to with YouTube's policy. Actually, no, I must admit, I read all of it. Wink. I read all of it, YouTube. Wink. So I can say they aren't the most clear with their communication, but I also don't put in my own work to understand the policy as well as I should. I did go back and search for all my emails from YouTube to see if they sent out an email blast saying, hey, we're changing our advertiser-friendly guidelines. I didn't see one. However, I did see an email earlier in November, which I ignored. Don't tell YouTube. And the email said, hey, go ahead and sign up to get email notifications of any policy updates. They sent out an email saying, hey, we will email you policy updates if you opt in, which I ignored. Don't tell YouTube. So it sounds as though YouTube may have been trying to roll out a way to be more clear with policy changes, to communicate those policy changes, but I didn't pay attention. So I just wanted to end this story by saying I think we should be a little bit more fair to YouTube because they're not doing this because they want to. They aren't the most clear with their communication, but they do seem to be trying to improve upon it. And I was not paying attention. But also, I 100% understand why content creators are furious about this because nobody wants to hear, hey, we're going to give you less money. That's a terrible thing to hear. I will link Google's content guidelines if you want to read the entire update from November 2022. Now let's talk about what I've been testing, and you have been listening to it. That's right. I am on the Behringer XM8500 again? Yeah, again. I want to do a video about the XM8500 and using affordable gear, and I am committing to using this setup for a full month of the podcast. I apologize if it's painful for you. I apologize if you are triggered by the fact that I am using a $25 microphone when there is a beautiful LCT 1040 right next to me and a beautiful SM7B with a microphone flag right next to me. I apologize if you're upset about that. Deal with it. XM8500 with an incredibly cheap, terrible sounding foam windscreen, which kills 5 dB of the high end. I am cheating a bit. I'm using a SoundSpeed special cable, and that is running into the Behringer UM2, a $30 interface. I am recording and hitting around -18 to -9 dB. And I think I'll probably stick to using stock plugins because that's the entire purpose of doing this. So that's what I am using. I did run a poll on Twitter, and I EQ'd the XM8500. Some people caught on. They said, oh, what I did is I included a sample of mic A, mic B, and said, which one do you prefer, mic A or mic B? Both of them were the XM8500. One was just EQ'd slightly differently to try to resolve some issues. And the original, the un-EQ'd version, people liked better. I was stunned. I was stunned. So there you go. That's the resolution there. I didn't poll any what you had to say, but I did poll some Ask Bandrew, so let's jump to my favorite part of the show, the Ask Bandrew segment. Welcome back to the Ask Bandrew segment, the segment where you ask me, Bandrew, and I answer you, questionnaire. If you have questions that you want to ask me and to have me try to answer, go to askbandrew.com. There are instructions on how to send in audio, video, and text-based questions. I do prefer audio and video because then I don't have to read. You get a break from hearing me read, you get a break from my voice, and we get to hear how you sound on your equipment, and that is just a blast. That is just fun for all family and friends and whatever. Okay, let's go to the first submission from Benjamin. Take it away, Benjamin.
Hello, Bandrew. I'm using the default Behringer XM8500 running into another default Scarlett 2i2 3rd gen with zero post-processing. It is quite the bare necessities of setups, but when you're trying to interview a 70-year-old and get their audio for when they die, aka your grandparents, it's a lot easier than trying to explain Audacity to them. So here's my question. So I find that I talk very close to the microphone, and sometimes I'm even touching the pop filter. So is this something that really matters or that I should care about? Is this going to heavily impact my audio in the long run? When I try to do the 4 to 6 inches, I find that my length consistency is really, really, really bad. And I hate being so close because then I can hear all the spit residue in my mouth, and it's just the worst thing ever. It makes me want to kill myself. Can I even say that on here? Anyway, the Black Bay 58 is a sexy watch. Glad you have one. And final question, where do you get your work ethic and professionalism from? It's very clear that you have a lot of discipline when it comes to getting things done and just your content in general. It's not something you see in creatives or YouTubers, for that matter. Not as often as you would in other fields. So, yeah, I just would love to see the origin, hear about the origin of that work ethic and discipline. It would be cool to know. Thanks, Bandrew.
Ben, thank you very much for the voice submission. I really do appreciate it. You were using the XM8500. Hey, twins! And you are running into the Scarlett 2i2 3rd gen with no post-processing. I gotta tell you, I was a bit surprised to hear that. When you listed your gear, I was shocked that it was the XM8500. I never would have thought, oh, that's a $25 microphone. Good job, Ben. Well done. And you weren't even doing anything to it. So I guess well done, Behringer and Focusrite. And good on you for picking it up and pairing them. Okay, the first question is, you talk very close to the microphone and even touch the pop filter. Is this going to impact audio in the long run? You do find your consistency and distance to be lacking, but you hate the mouth noises of being close. First off, I also hate mouth noises. Secondly, do not self-harm. I know you're just goofing, but don't do that. Makes me want to do it too when I hear it, but do not do that, please. If you do feel the urge, seek help. Seek professional help. There are services for that. I need to include that disclosure. And how will this impact your sound over the long run? As you already pointed out, as you noticed, when you get closer, the amount of mouth clicks in the recording is going to increase because they are being picked up much louder by the microphone. If you're farther away, the mouth clicks are going to be less prominent in your recording. That's the first way. It's going to impact your recording. The second way, proximity effect, because the XM8500 is a directional microphone. As you get closer to the microphone, the proximity effect becomes more exaggerated, so you get a lot more low mids and bass. So as I get closer to this, not only is it getting louder, but you hear a lot more of that low midsection. Just becomes very beefy and very muddy. Very, very muddy. Another thing to consider in terms of long-term use, the closer you are to the microphone, the more likely you are to spit on it. And with something like the XM8500, I wouldn't be the most concerned with that. You said you have a pop filter. I don't know if it's a pop filter or a windscreen. A lot of people confuse those, but the pop filter will likely block a lot of that. A windscreen will block that too. I doubt you could buy a replacement ball for the end of the XM8500, but maybe you'd probably just end up buying a new one. But the buildup of spit on your pop filter, on your windscreen, can impact the sound, and it will make you sound a lot worse because you will be vomiting while you're recording when you look at the caked on food. I saw that on a Twitch streamer. He eats all the time on his stream, and I saw the pop filter just peeked out from behind the microphone. It was caked in food. I started gagging. It was one of the most repulsive things I have ever seen. Stop it. Get some help. So yes, it will impact your recording over the long term, but you can change out the pop filter, you can change out the windscreen, and if you want to get farther away from the microphone, you can decrease the proximity effect, and you can decrease the mouth clicks that get picked up. Now, I would recommend practicing, because you said that your consistency in terms of distance is terrible. The only way you're going to improve at that is practice. I wouldn't recommend just jumping into a critical recording and trying this out. Oh, this is going to be the last chance I get to record this. I'm going to experiment. Probably don't do that. Stick with what you know. Stick to what you do well in those situations for now. But when you're not doing critical recordings, experiment, practice, record, listen back, make adjustments. And through that practice and through that repetition, you will get much better at keeping a consistent distance from the microphone. That is my main advice for your first question, and I hope that helps. Best of luck. I think that is a great project that you're working on, interviewing and recording family members while they're still around. That is an incredible project to be working on. The second you also say something about the Black Bay 58. I'm not going to talk watches here because I know there are some people who are just like, shut up, Bandrew, shut up. More watch talk? You are so annoying. I get it. When I get interested in something, I get really interested in it, and I don't stop talking about it. I won't be quiet. So I'm not going to turn this podcast into a watch talk podcast. I've done that in the past, and people don't care. Most people don't care. I have a watch channel if you want to hear me rant about watches. But thank you. The second question is, where do I get my work ethic and professionalism from? You asked for this, Ben. You asked for this. I'm going to ramble. This is going to be a rambly response. Growing up, I never thought of myself as someone with a good work ethic because I didn't like doing chores. I never did homework. I sucked at school, and my day jobs, I wasn't good at them. But when I found something that I loved doing, like music, it ceased feeling like work. It ceased feeling like a burden. As soon as I realized, oh, I love playing guitar, I love punk music, I love rock music, I love metal music, and I love playing guitar, I wanted to listen to that music, I wanted to practice guitar, I wanted to write songs, I wanted to play shows, I wanted to be a famous rock star. So I was willing to spend 10 hours a day doing that, and it was just a joy. It was never a slog. It was never a burden. It wasn't, oh my God, I have to do guitar again today. No, I don't want to do it. It was something that I discovered on my own. I wasn't pressured into playing guitar. I wasn't pressured into music. It's something that naturally came to me, and I fell in love with it and wanted to do it with every waking moment. So that was the start where I realized, oh, okay, I can do this all day long. And it never felt like, oh, I have a good work ethic. It was just, I love doing this. I'm going to do this. There was no other option. And what's the next logical point once you pick up an instrument? You find a bunch of other people in your school that play instruments as well, and you start a band. And what do bands do? They play concerts. They play shows. But when you start that band, you don't get emailed a bunch of shows and say, here you go, great job on starting a band. You can play concerts now. That's not how it works. In order to get on shows, you need to prove that you have an audience. You need an audience because that's why promoters put you on a show. It's a business. So what I had to do when we first started out, because we didn't have an audience, I had to hound churches. I hounded restaurants. I hounded community centers, YMCAs, fairs. Wherever a band could possibly play a show, I would hound them and try to get on a show. But that wasn't the end of it, because I know a lot of bands, I see a lot of bands, they get on shows and they just rely on posting on social media and say, oh, come out to a show. No, that's not how we did it. And it's not because it was around 2006, 2007 that we were coming up. We had MySpace, we had LiveJournal, we had Friendster, we had Pure Volume, we had all of those. You didn't just do that. When you get on a show, you get a flyer from the venue, you get a flyer from the promoter. If they don't have one, you make one yourself, you go to Kinko's, rest in peace, you print up hundreds or thousands of flyers, and what are you doing on the nights that you aren't practicing or before practice? You go to every single show that you can and flyer the lines. That's what we did. We would go to every single show and flyer. Not only does this introduce people in the lines to your band, but the promoters start to recognize you. And once they recognize you, oh my gosh, these people are at every single show flyering for their other concerts. We want somebody doing that for our shows. So they realize that you are willing to put in the work, and they put you on shows. But we didn't just stick to flyering concerts. Like I mentioned 1 or 2 episodes ago, we would burn a bunch of CDs with 2 or 3 songs on them in the little CD envelope, put a flyer, and go to malls. We would go to the local university and hand out CDs with the flyers in them to try to expand our audience. Through all this work, it never seemed like work. It was always fun for us. But through this, I guess, work ethic, we got known by the promoters. We got on bigger and bigger shows. Our first show was at a church because our bass player went to that church. Our second show was at a Chinese food restaurant. We played at that Chinese food restaurant for about a year and a half. Johnny, if you ever see this, thank you. There's never too much rock and roll, Johnny. Never. Johnny was one of the funniest guys. I love that man. I would call him up and say, hey, Johnny, do you have any shows? Is there any opening slots on a show? Because they had a tiny stage and they would bring in punk bands. And he says, no, there's too much rock and roll tonight. There's too much rock and roll. And I love that man because he allowed us to play at his Chinese food restaurants. And right next door was an internet cafe. That's the first time I had boba tea. I'm getting off topic. First show, church. Second show, it was at a Chinese food restaurant. The last show I ever played, different band, but same work ethic, going to every show to flyer. Last show ever played was opening for Bring Me the Horizon. They weren't the world's biggest rock band back then, but Bring Me the Horizon, 4 years strong, one of my all-time favorites. Thursday, my favorite in high school, a band that I swore I would play a show with once. We played with them, and the other, Pierce the Veil. Quite a way to end. None of that was handed to us. That was all done because we loved playing instruments, we loved writing music, we loved playing concerts. And in order to do that, you needed to go to concerts and hand out flyers. You needed to do everything in your power to ensure that you expanded your reach, to ensure that as many people were going to come to your show as possible. Because when you realize that everything is transactional, everything is a business transaction, including in art, you may think, oh, my music is pure. What I do is just pure art, and I don't care about the money. That's fine. If you want to function that way, more power to you. But once you realize these promoters are not doing it out of the love of art, maybe they do love art, but it's a business for them. You need to prove to them why they should have you on their show. And that is how we accomplish that, through brute force. I have said this many a time. I have never accomplished anything from inherent skill. It is all through bashing my head against the wall over and over and over again until information gets in there or until I accomplish what I set out to do. Why am I telling you all this? By coming up in the punk and hardcore and metal scene, I learned that very quickly. I learned, these other bands are going to every show and flyering, and I don't think they're as good as us, but they are playing massive shows. I guess we need to go to every concert and flyer and promote and be businessmen about it. We need to understand how all of this functions. And it may sound crass, but that is how I view YouTube and podcasts. I have a blast doing it, but I would never expect anybody to watch what I am doing or listen to what I'm doing just because I love doing it. I expect people to watch or listen because they see value in what it is. I am trying to offer them something that they enjoy, that they are willing to spend an hour of time with me listening to. That is an honor that anybody would spend any amount of their day listening to what I have to say. Nobody around me does. People at work don't. So the fact that you are choosing to spend your time doing that is an honor. And that is why I do so much work. So once you understand that nobody is going to help you out, nobody is going to do the work for you, you have no other option but to start working. Get to work. And once you've done that work and started to create that content, you need to understand just because this is not Field of Dreams. This is not a build it and they will come kind of situation. Just because you make a video that you like, just because you make a podcast that you like, does not mean that people are going to or should watch or listen to it. You need to make sure that there is justification for somebody to watch and listen to it, just like with the band. We would try to put on the craziest shows. We would dress in goofy princess outfits while playing metal music while our singer hangs from rafters and we put holes in the wall. We would do the craziest stuff that we could think of to make it entertaining. We tried to write great music also, and maybe it was a bit gimmicky, but we tried to play really well. And we evolved out of doing goofy stuff like that. We did one show. We went to Walmart the night before and we bought white t-shirts, red clip-on ties, and our gimmick was we were doing a My Chemical Romance show. And that's the show that I slipped on some water on the floor. Thanks, Cree. Appreciate that. And I snapped the headstock off of my Gibson Les Paul Studio. So what did I do? I smashed the guitar. And then I may or may not have just laid in the snow outside, just been depressed. Maybe a tear or two fell because I didn't have $1,000 to buy a new guitar. That sucked. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, giving people justification or giving people a reason to watch and listen to you. Make your videos and podcasts extremely valuable. If you want a company to send something to you, you sure as heck better have an understanding of why they would. Why would a company give you a portion of their limited budget? Because that equipment doesn't fall out of the equipment tree. They had to make it. Making it cost money. So why are they going to spend their money to build the product and send it to you if they get nothing in return? I understood that from day one because I came up in this punk and metal and hardcore scene, where if you wanted anything done, you had to do it yourself. If you wanted to get on a show, you had to offer value. If I wanted a company to send me something to review, I sure as heck better frame it in a, here is how you are going to benefit from allowing me to cover this product. Luckily, I've had to stop doing that because I hate doing that. I'm trying to get away from it, but that's my answer. I came up playing in punk, metal, hardcore scenes. Nobody did anything for you. It was a DIY mentality. If you wanted anything done, if you wanted to record, if you wanted to get on shows, you had to save up, you had to put in the legwork, you had to put in the hours, and it was a joy to do because you loved playing music. You loved playing shows. I do this because I love making podcasts. I love screaming into microphones. I love testing microphones. It is a joy for me to do. So I have this work ethic because I don't view it as work most of the time. Sometimes I do. And on those days, I'm sure you can tell because I don't seem to be having a good time. But most of the time, I do it because it's fun. Sure, you have to light a fire under your rear end sometimes when you don't feel like doing anything. But sometimes you can say, I'm going to take a week off. This is supposed to be fun for me. It's not fun right now. I'm not going to do it. I hope that was a sufficient answer. I probably rambled on way too long, shared too much information, but there you go. Thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate you. Next, we have an email from Milos. He says, Hey, Bandrew, I have a gaming PC that I game on and a Mac that I work on. Additionally, I have an Arteria Minifuse 2 connected to the Mac. And to it, I have a pair of headphones and a pair of studio monitors and a microphone connected. What do you think is the best way for me to have audio fed from the PC to the interface so I can control the output to my speaker/headphones when I want to play a game? I may be overthinking this, but I'm thinking getting a cheap audio interface and feeding its monitor out to the Arteria input. Perhaps a monitor controller? I am lost. My goal is not to touch any cables when I switch computers. Milos, thank you for the email. Reading through this again, I thought you were on the right track, but I don't think you are anymore. Because the issue is, if you don't want to touch any cables, you would be running a stereo output into a mono input on the Arteria. So unless you're okay with that, then sure, it would work. Stereo output into that mono input, you're just going to hear everything, left, right, going to be the exact same sound. If you wanted a stereo input into stereo input, and then you could hear left and right differently, you would have to unplug your microphone. I am not an expert on dual PC setups, so I am going to allow people to reply in the comments on this YouTube. I'm going to allow them. I'm begging them to reply. I'm not allowing them. Please, if you have expertise here and have a recommendation for Milos, send it in the comments on YouTube, because I don't know. You would need to have some kind, maybe have two interfaces and then a monitor controller that has dual line inputs, input A, input B, but then the monitor controller doesn't have a headphone output, so you would be lacking your headphones. You would have to unplug your headphones and move to the other computer, and then you wouldn't be routing anything into the Mac. Yeah, I'm going to rely on the comments on this one because I don't know. You'd have to touch cables in any situation that I can think of. So please help Milos in the comments. And finally, we have a video submission from Eric. Take it away, Eric.
Hello, this is Eric. You may remember me from that guy that asked you once what microphone to buy, the Shure SM7B or the Electro Voice RE320. So, as you may be seeing, I went for the RE320 as I think it may suit best for my voice, but the main reason I am recording this video is to show you my signal chain. Right now, I'm using the Wave XLR as my interface and the Wavelink software as my main mixer and signal processing software. The RE320 is at 40 dB of gain, 48 kHz, and only I'm using two plugins. You know, I'm also a less is better advocate. So right now I'm using a channel strip, the SSL 4000E as my expander, compressor, and equalization plugin. My other plugin is this, the CLA2A that I'm using as a limiter, so if I get loud, I don't clip. The reason I went with this is to get my voice and my squad voices through Discord be heard on live streams, in which you have all the sound effects and the music from the game at the background. Usually I put my microphone at 100% levels, the chat levels at around 95%, the gain is only on 85%, no effects for the game channel, and my main streaming mixing is at 76% in order to have a not too hot output during the live streams. So that's my take on how I process my audio, and without further ado, I have two questions for you. Number one, how do I sound? And number two, if there is any room for improvements, I would like to hear your take. So, this is it. Thank you so much for all your content. I found it very helpful for me as a beacon on my audio journey, as many others followers indeed. Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure. Take care. Have a good one. Eric signing off. Bye-bye.
Eric, thank you very much for the video submission. I really do appreciate it. Question 1, how do I sound? I think your audio is very listenable. I think the compression and the expander sound very good. If I was being hypercritical, the compressor slash limiter was a bit aggressive, but it seems to be serving its purpose, making your audio more controlled, more stable, because you want it to be more dominant over the gaming and the chat audio, so I think that's permissible. Where I think there's room for improvement is the EQ. Looking at the video, I think there is way too much EQ. Well, first, listening, I was thinking, there's a lot of top end here. There's a lot of top end. Then I looked at the EQ that you sent in. There's a lot of EQ. A lot of top end in the EQ. The issue arises with the fact that the RE320 is already an extremely bright microphone. It's already extremely bright. But not only is it a bright microphone, in your EQ, you are adding a 5 decibel high shelf at 8.5 kilohertz. Then you're adding a 3 decibel boost at around 6.5 kilohertz. So you are boosting an already extremely bright microphone by 5 decibels in the top end. I would pull both of those way, 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 way back. Because as it is right now, it's a bit aggressive in the top end. A bit too aggressive in the top end to my ears. So that is my recommendation. That is how I would improve it. Adjust the EQ, because right now I think it's too bright. The expander, the compression, I think those are fine right now. Sorry for burping mid-sentence. That's absolutely disgusting. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Maybe edit? Nah, not going to do that. I've already edited too much. Eric, thank you very much for the video submission. I appreciate you. And there you go. That is it for this episode of the BSP. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I love you. I hope you have an amazing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will talkish you. Now I'm going to go to my local thrift store and try to find a beige, square, flat screen computer monitor from 2007, 2006, one of those, because I don't know why. I got a hankering for one of those. Just seems like a fun way to spend $10. So we'll see if I can find that. That is it. I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye. Whoa. Whoa. Boop.
And once again, we want to thank the Geeks Rising Podcast Network for sponsoring this previous hour of the Epic Live stream. Meow. 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 Did I represent you well, buddy?
It's not as good coming up either.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.